All right, welcome back to Friday Morning Fuel. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I'm Coach Danny, Wellness Coordinator for Exos. Again, thank you for joining me this morning. We are putting together a Brussels sprouts, bacon, and egg bowl for our Friday Morning Fuel today. But this recipe can easily be used in a lunch or dinner opportunity as well. So it's one great thing about using veggies in your breakfast or demoing any kind of veggie bowl for breakfast is that you can easily make this a lunch bowl or a dinner bowl, and you want to swap out those protein options as well. So we have some shaved Brussels sprouts. So I already pre-chopped these and added them to a bowl. So pre-chopped Brussels sprouts. Then we have got mushrooms and onion in this bowl. And then I have chopped bacon on here. So this is turkey bacon, disclaimer. It is turkey bacon. I just prefer that. And it's kind of like pre-cooked. So I went ahead and chopped it. It's not like raw or anything. I just have to like heat it up in the skillet. And then we have a bowl of egg whites in here. We're going to add that at the end. We've got some walnuts in here. Okay, so if you looked at the recipe card, you might have noticed it didn't have a lot of amounts for the veggies. That is totally up to you. I always tell you all to make it about you, get creative, whatever you like. Of course, all these veggies, the other ingredients can be swapped out for many, many different things, okay? You can add some kale in there, swap out those Brussels sprouts for some kale. Any kind of ingredients will do. Brussels sprouts are a cruciferous vegetable. So if you don't know what that is, it is a classification of veggies under like very similar to like cauliflower or broccoli. Those cruciferous veggies are great for anti-inflammatory properties, and they're also good for digestion. Lots of fiber. And Brussels sprouts actually are one of the few vegetables that have higher amount of protein in them. It's another great way to add in some protein to your breakfast is some dark green veggies. You can also add in some like nuts and seeds like we're doing here with walnuts, or add in some egg whites or protein as well. So, all right, let's go ahead and add all these to our skillet. So I've got my skillet over here preheating. I'm going to add just a little bit of olive oil. I do have it on low because per previous Friday Morning Fuel episodes, tend to burn things sometimes, so put it on low. Alright, gonna spread around that oil a little bit, and then we will add first the onions and the mushrooms. So I'm just going to put these into the skillet. I'll set that aside. So we will let those cook for just a minute or so, and then we'll add the Brussels sprouts and then the bacon and then the walnuts. We'll cook all of that first, and then we will cook the egg whites, which should be pretty quick. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and make the best part of any meal, the sauce, right? So we are making a mustard sauce. It's a little tangy sauce. I don't really have like a specific name for it, but we are going to take a tablespoon of mustard, good heaping tablespoon. If you really like mustard, add a little bit more. Get creative. All right, we have 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. You know, sometimes with cooking, it's just like guesstimating sometimes. That is the beauty in cooking, is that you make it your own. Add more of what you like, less of what you don't. Alright, we're going to add in a tablespoon of maple syrup, just for a little sweetness. And then we will squeeze half a lemon in there. And then we'll mix it all up. think you probably all can't see this. So just adding it to a small little bowl. So I've got the mustard, apple cider vinegar, maple syrup, and adding half a lemon in there. Although this is a pretty big lemon, so depending on the size of your lemon or if you really like lemon juice. And we'll mix that up. Alright, I think I'm going to add just a little bit more mustard. It's a little bit more liquidy than I wanted. So texture is also a big thing with sauces. You know, you make them to your preference. Alright, so I think we've got our sauce ready. So we'll set that aside for now. Let's check on the onions and the mushrooms. Feel like a really professional chef now. I'm like, let's check on what we've got on the stove. Alright. Those are smelling good. So we'll go ahead and add our Brussels sprouts to our skillet. And I am making 2 servings here. So you feel free to adjust if you're making this like a weekend breakfast bowl for your family. Obviously, you can increase those portion sizes. So I'm adding in the bacon. And I'll stir it all up. So this is where you can get even a little more creative and add in some extra seasonings. You can do a little salt and pepper. You can go turmeric. Any garlic if you want to add any. I'm just going to do a little bit of sea salt. Keep it simple. But feel free to get as creative as you want with those seasonings. The great thing about the shaved Brussels sprouts is that they don't take very long to cook. It's yes, it takes a couple minutes to pre-prep them, chop them up, but once they're in the skillet, they cook pretty quickly because they're shaved thin. So that'll sit there for about a minute or so. In the meantime, we'll have our health chat conversation. So as you know, for those of you that have been regular attendees to Friday Morning Fuel, you know that since the beginning of the year, I've been focusing a little bit less on like, you know, what exactly is on our plate, but we've been talking about more of the health behaviors, the mindset that goes into what we put on our plate, right? Those decisions that we make. And so this morning I wanted to just bring up something sort of like the elephant in the room, so to speak, of some conversations that I've been having lately, not just with Lenovo employees, but also with like family and friends. As you know, we are all coming up on that year mark of being in a new normal, right? In this work from home environment. And I think that collectively we're all kind of experiencing the like effects of that. It's almost like we're looking back and seeing like, wow, how did I get here? And I think a lot of us are suddenly experiencing that all at the same time, because the way change happens, it's like it happens slowly, and then all of a sudden, right? It's like you don't notice that progression or you don't notice the regression until you're there. And you're like, how did I get here? Right? You suddenly like wake up and look in the mirror, rather metaphorically or literally, and you're like, how did I get here over this past year? And so I want you to keep in mind that change does happen very slowly, and it's almost like it has taken a whole year for the change to be big enough that it's noticeable, because in the day-to-day you don't notice those small regressions that take place. And there have been a lot of factors that play into that. I mean, we're all living in a pandemic, and there's a lot of contributing stressors that go along with that, all while us adjusting to working differently. So I think, my main message today is, one, like, recognize that you're not the only one feeling that way. If you are feeling that way, there's a lot of us that are suddenly like waking up and realizing like, wow, a whole year later, I'm not who I thought I'd be. I'm not who I wanted to be at this point. And give yourself a little grace. Give yourself grace and space. Kind of like my theme lately is some grace and space. Grace to recognize that a lot of what has happened this past year is not your fault. A lot of it has been out of your control, and that's okay, right? But give yourself some space also to recognize that even though a lot of things have been out of your control, there are still a lot of factors you can control. So this is where sort of my tough love comes in, of giving yourself some space to recognize, okay, maybe we haven't made the best decisions, but those decisions were influenced by outside factors, right? So give yourself grace in the fact that things contributed to that were out of your control, but regardless, you still made these decisions that maybe led you to a very like regressed place of where you wanted to be. So step one is to like acknowledge that, right? Give yourself the space to acknowledge and recognize, okay, I'm not where I wanted to be. This is not what I hoped for. Grace, that's okay. Space, how do I change this? How do I move forward? How do I make the conscious decision today to change that? And also recognize that, over the last year, that regression has happened very, very slowly. Change forward also happens very slowly. It's like it takes us a year or more to like really see how did I get here, and then we want to change in the next month. It doesn't happen that way, unfortunately. Like those small little changes that we made over the last year have added up to right now. So in the same way, moving forward, those small little changes that you can make each day are going to add up, right? So give yourself some grace in knowing you're not alone in feeling that way. I think a lot of us are suddenly recognizing the impact that this past year has had. But how can you allow some space to change that moving forward, right? The first step is recognizing, but also making sure you don't make it mean something about you as a person, right? Don't, like I said, know that a lot of what has happened has not been in your control. So it doesn't mean anything about you as a person. I think we often go straight to like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm a failure. Why didn't I do this right? And we make it mean something about us personally when it doesn't. It's just a circumstance. And so recognize what thoughts you're having and what you're making this past year mean about you. And give yourself that grace and that space to choose differently, to move forward and move forward in small decisions, small choices each day. Okay, I'm going to add in my egg whites. Did I forget anything? Not so far, I don't think. But anyways, I just wanted to say that because I feel like as many conversations as I've been having lately with everyone around me, I want everyone to recognize that it's okay that you see yourself and you say like, I'm not where I wanted to be. this past year has been really hard on all of us, but how can you recognize, look at it, and move forward, right? What small thing can you change today? How can you choose differently today to start making those small little changes to lead you to where you want to be, right? That, like I said, that regression happens slowly, all of a sudden, and that's exactly how change moving forward happens, very, very slowly, and all of a sudden. Okay, so how can you choose differently today and keep moving forward? Know that you're not alone in feeling that way. Had a lot of conversations with, as I said, people around me that are just recognizing, like even myself included. This is why I like to have these conversations, so that you all know that, like, fitness professionals, health professionals, like, we also struggle with these same things. We're not, don't feel like you have to look at us as these, like, shining star examples. Like, we are also going through these things, which is why we talk about them to you all, is because it's part of just being human. So that's what I want you all to take from today's Friday morning fuel, is a little bit of grace, a little bit of space. What does that mean for you? All right, our egg whites are almost done. So I did 6 egg whites in here because I was doing 2 servings, that's 3 per serving. That gives you about 9 grams of protein in egg whites, so it's without the egg yolk. But we have also added some bacon, some walnuts, and some Brussels sprouts, so this is still a very high protein breakfast for you. And of course, like I said, you can swap out the protein if you want to make this a lunch bowl. You can add some chicken, some ground beef, some salmon, whatever you'd like. Make it for lunch or dinner. Veggie style, you can add some tofu in there as well. Alright, I think we're done. So I'm going to add these egg whites to our bowls. Alright, so we have our Brussels sprouts, bacon, and egg bowl. There we are. Let's add our sauce in there. Just a little bit of sauce. Fortunately, it did come out a little bit more like liquidy than I thought, but that's okay. It's still, sure, it'll still taste good. Sauce is always like the thing that makes the bowl. I'm going to top it off with a little bit of parsley. If you have fresh parsley or cilantro, feel free to use that as well. Put it off on there. So here is our bowl when it's finished. Y'all see that? And let's try a bite. That's delicious. A lot of different flavors. It's almost like this isn't breakfast. It can be. Breakfast can be fun. But yeah, this is a lot of savory flavors. Delicious. Definitely an option to make for lunch as well. If you maybe don't want as many flavors in like your breakfast bowl, or if you're more of a like, what's it called? Bland morning person. But this is delicious. I think the sauce definitely makes it, adds a lot to it. You can make it for breakfast, like a weekend bowl if you have a little more time in the kitchen on a weekend day. Definitely a great option for when you're feeling like you want something savory. Or, as I said, make it for lunch or dinner. Alright? Thank you for joining me for another episode of Friday Morning Fuel. I appreciate you all joining me in my kitchen on these Friday mornings to have some conversations, to whip up some good food. So I appreciate you all being here. And just remember to take some grace and space with you into this weekend and think about what that means for you moving forward as we're coming up on that year mark of being at home. Okay, I know that we're all here for you. Your Exos coaches are here to support you if you ever want to have a conversation or talk to anyone. Know that we are a resource for you. So don't go through all that alone, right? And if we're not the right people to help you, we will point you to someone who can. Okay, but reach out to someone, initiate that conversation, and we will see you next week for Friday Morning Fuel. Have a great weekend, everyone. All right. Thanks.